You know how they say that your life flashes before your eyes when you die? I've always wondered what would actually be in those flashbacks. So let's think about it for a second. What is it you actually care about? Would it be the big, loud things that happened in your life, all of the achievements, the accolades, the drama? Or would it instead be the small stuff? A family dinner, sitting on the couch with your dog or cat after a stressful day at work, that quiet moment after the party at 2 a.m, just looking out over nothing. I can tell you what it wouldn't be, and it wouldn't be wall-to-wall action. It wouldn't be frantic cuts between memories, a giant CGI light beam, or a Seth Rogen-sounding alien bus driver. Well, it might be that last one, but you really get what I'm saying here. All of that stuff is just noise. And that is Supergirl. It's a movie that so desperately wants you to feel something, but is just terrified to slow down for long enough to let you. And it's not just Supergirl, it's half of every blockbuster right now. And it's the reason why, of all things, this comes down to a duck. And even worse, I couldn't even tell you what the movie was about. I'm not talking about the plot itself, because a film like this is almost entirely focused on the character arc. The starting point's easy enough. She's lonely, she's drunk, she's miserable. I can give you the end point's easy enough as well. She ends up not lonely, not drunk, and not miserable. But it's that pesky middle part, the moment or incident that catalyzes some sort of change in her. It just isn't there. But let's get a quick rundown first. It's the second film in James Gunn's rebuilt DC universe, and it's adapting the comic Woman of Tomorrow. Millie Alcock plays Kara Zor-El, who's Superman's cousin. But where Clark left as a baby and remembers nothing about Krypton, Kara grew up on a surviving fragment of it and watched the rest of it die around her. So she actually remembers the home that she lost. And after a quick stint there with Clark, which never quite feels like home to her, she heads off to drink her way around the galaxy instead. The pitch, which is straight off of the trailer, is that Clark sees the good in everyone, but I see the truth, which looks great on a poster, but it's much less great when you remember that it's a PG-13 rated film and the darkest thing on offer is one swear word and a man getting stabbed in the throat with no blood coming out. The plot really kicks off when her dog Crypto gets poisoned by a space pirate called Krem, and she's given 72 hours to find the antidote. So she begrudgingly teams up with a inexplicably British, furious little girl who's also hunting Krem for murdering her entire family, and the two of them just tear across the galaxy on some sort of revenge road trip. Jason Momoa is there as well, and he's playing a bounty hunter called Lobo, and of course by there I mean that he's there to collect a check to play the classic handsome, unhinged wild man that he pretty much just plays every single role nowadays since Fast and Furious. And if he really keeps up this pace, I think he's probably a good 2 or 3 roles away from becoming akin to the Rock. And the film does this thing that I've really come to hate. It pauses the entire film to mock the revenge plot of the young girl for being extra generic, as if the self-awareness of how generic and cliche this plot is gives them a pass to use it. But even worse than this, the most generic plot here isn't the orphan seeking vengeance for her family. That's almost Hamlet compared to the actual A plot, which, as we talked about, is pretty much just John Wick or Pig, but set in space. But we can go deeper than this, can't we? Because those films, the John Wicks, the Pigs, those aren't bad films by any stretch of the imagination, right? And I mean, surely if you took inspiration from these stories and you had a budget as big as this film's and a writer pool as deep as this, the film would at least be something that's interesting to watch, right? So let's ask ourselves, what's missing here? But before we get into it, if you're enjoying this, I would love if you would subscribe or like the video. It really helps a lot. So I mentioned a duck at the start of the video, and I think this is about the time to talk about it. There's this one piece of film theory that I'm going to put you through really quick, and it's a concept called the eye of the duck. So let's do this together. Let's picture a duck. I'll put one up on screen. Every part of it's pulling its weight. We have the bill, we have the feet, we have the soft, uneventful middle, and then we have the eye. And it only really works in one place when you think about it. If you stuck the eye of the duck on its body, it would get completely lost. If you stuck the eye on the bill of the duck, it's just fighting everything around it. The eye needs that quiet, slow space around it just to be seen. And as the theory goes, films have one of these eyes of the duck as well. And it isn't the climax, it isn't the big set piece, it's a single quiet scene that holds the entire soul of the movie in it. And if you want to see this done right in a superhero movie, we can look no further than Logan. 2/3 in, we have the three of them stop for a dinner at a farmhouse with a family who live there. And they eat, they talk, and nothing happens. They just have an ordinary evening in an ordinary home. And you realize that this is the exact normal life that Logan was never going to get to live. The film just stops a little bit and lets you sit in it. And that's the whole movie right there in its slowest scene. And that's the texture that every one of these films knows how to find. A man training the puppy his dead wife left him in John Wick. The starving kid talking out loud about how one day he'd just love to eat bread with jam on it. The wrecked recluse hunting truffles in the wood with his pig. None of these are big things. They're all decidedly small. The kind of small that you and we've all actually lived. We all know what it means to talk to your pet after a brutal day of work, to sit at a table with your family, to want one seemingly stupid little thing and nothing more. Nobody has to talk you into that feeling. You bring that yourself. That's the eye of the duck, and I want you to keep it in mind as we talk about a scene from Supergirl to see if we can find the eye of the duck in it. Here's how Supergirl handles the most important relationship of its entire plot. Kara and her dog, Crypto. We get a flashback. Krypton is dying. The shields are thrown up around the sliver of the city. It breaks off and drifts away on a chunk of rock, and we eventually find out that everyone on board's slowly dying of radiation. And we get a few scenes of Kara when she's young and happy, just running around playing with her parents. Almost immediately, her mother takes a turn for the worse from the radiation sickness, and at the funeral of the mother during the procession, that's where we have Crypto run up and meet Kara. And then we have the rest of the species kind of dying around them, and her dad giving her a tearful goodbye as she's shot off to Earth. Now, this all sounds like one of the most emotional beats imaginable. We have the dying mother, we have a dying planet, we have an entire dying species, and an orphan launched alone into space. How could that possibly not land? And to be clear, it really doesn't. And it's because these scenes should have been the eye of the duck. But instead, they filmed them like the loudest scene in the movie. Because the flashback in question is a series of quick cuts, dramatic imagery, a world being obliterated, her family dying around her, all fired at you at once, crammed between special effects shots with no room to breathe. The film keeps reaching for these large, cosmic almost events, when the human is sat there right in front of it. It's mistaking the scale of something as being equal for the weight of something, and it just can't seem to tell the two apart. And that's the difference that actually matters here. Which brings me to the end of the film, and I'm going to try to keep it vaguish for you. The whole sell of Supergirl is that she's the dark version of her cousin, Superman, the Kryptonian who will cross the line when he never would. And in the climax, she does cross that line. She kills the bad guy. She kills Krem. And it just feels like nothing. It slides right off because the person she's killing is nothing. And I don't mean that as in they're a bad actor. It's just that Krem has no backstory. He has no motivation past is evil. He has no loyalty to his henchmen dying around him. And what's the reason he's even hunting any of these people in the first place? In the end, Krem is just a guy who does villain things because the plot needs a villain, which means the big transgression, Supergirl taking a life, the line that Superman would never cross, is just a person you have no feelings for, killing another person that you also have no feelings for. The film thinks it's staging Superman would never do this, but Supergirl would. It's in reality staging just two strangers fighting each other to the death. And one of them just stops moving, which really is the whole movie in a nutshell, right to the final frame. It reaches for the heaviest beat that it's got, and there's just nothing underneath it to give it the real weight that it needs. And none of this really touches on the stuff that just bothered me personally, which I'm going to walk through anyway because this is the fun part. The power scaling here just makes absolutely no sense. Kara spends the first two acts getting thrown through walls by Krem's henchmen, and then takes Krem himself apart in about 5 seconds at the end of the film. And tell me if I'm going crazy with this one here, because this one, I think, almost bothered me the most of all of them. When Krem goes to kill the young girl's family, he comes into their house and he's trying to get the nicely forged swords from her father. He takes a second, takes a beat, and spies a pie on the bench. And he goes, "Is that pie you're eating?" Which, why does a planet on the other side of the galaxy have not just the conception of pie, but the exact same word for it? So where does all of this leave us? Well, it leaves us with a loud, expensive, frantic film about a woman going through the lowest point in her life that never once worked out how to be quiet for long enough to let anyone feel any of it. And it's not alone. It's the exact thing half of these enormous films seem to get wrong now. They can't sit still. They're terrified that a quiet beat is a dead one. I'm going to give it a 2 out of 13. I give it 1 extra point because the CGI did look so good. All right, guys. See ya.